Hi, and welcome to the webinar about race management. I'm Amanda Wessler. I'm the drag racing specialist. I will be taking you through race management a couple different ways, one for non-Portatree tracks and then one for Portatree tracks. It's a little bit different. I've got some ideas and some ways, some workarounds when you aren't able to use that live timing portion that will allow you to still use some of the other stuff that we have in our race management system other than our schedule and those kind of things. Excuse me, I know that a lot of our current clients don't necessarily take advantage of that, but you could. Everything in race management is included for one price. So make sure that you think about what you want to use and kind of listen to what I have to say about the workarounds, and maybe some of this will apply to you in the end. So again, the things we're going to cover today are setup. So race night. We're going to kind of go through a race night, essentially. So that we're going to start with the setup of those classes that you're going to be running, the entry process, and points and pay for our non-Portatree tracks. And then for our Portatree tracks, we're going to go a little bit further, obviously, because we're going to be doing entries, results, points and pay, as well as how do we connect that Portatree timing system to the MRP Live. And then at the end, we're going to talk about some 1099 reports that hopefully will be helpful for you come tax season to get those 1099s out to your drivers that have earned $600 or more, and then get those over to your financial person. And I'll tell you a few little things about that when we get to that point. So like I said, I'm going to start with setup. The first thing I do want to reiterate is if you were not on Monday's webinar, please go back and watch it. I think that it's got some valuable information in it, especially when it comes to online registrations. Online driver registrations is very new for drag racing on My Race Pass, and I would really like a lot of us to take advantage of it. I think it's going to be really good for our Portatree and non-Portatree tracks. For non-Portatree tracks, I'm going to talk about why it's important when I get there. But there are two different types that I really recommend. One is that yearly registration. With that yearly registration, that would be what I would consider to be your point sign up. And I'll tell you why it's beneficial to have that point sign up through this method. It will come into play when we talk about points and those kind of things later on. And then the other is the event registration. That would be like your weekly tech card or your nightly tech card. Those points registration, or sorry, those registrations, the event registrations can be paid for online. Therefore, they don't have to worry about it when they get to the gate. And that driver information that's collected with those registrations will be housed in My Race Pass, giving you one less place to put it when it comes time to maybe do some live timing stuff if you're capable, or when it comes time to do points at the end of the night. So I'm going to start by talking about non-Portatree tracks. And what that really is going to look like for us on the My Race Pass side. So like I said, we're going to start out in our race management system. We are going to skip over season management because that was the first, that was on Monday. We're going to go down here to race management. When you click on race management from this screen, or from any screen really, it's going to take you to the next available event that is on your schedule. For us at your favorite track, the next available event is the 18th. That would be tomorrow. So that's why that event came up first. If you're looking for another event, let's say previous or future event, you're going to click on up here in the top left where it's got the date and the name of your track. You're going to click on that. It will open this window up and it will show you all available dates for you to choose from. Give me 1 second. I apologize for that. I was having some internet issues that I had to fix before I continued on. So when you get to this is your race management. Like I said, if you want to change the date, it's up here in the top left. If you want to go future date, past date, whatever it is. When you get to this screen, this is called your setup screen. You can see that the setup is selected here, this year. This is where you're going to set up your classes. Now, these class settings are where you're going to choose how you want the system to behave. Now, right now in My Race Pass, this does not affect anything in your timing system. So if you were to do live timing with us, either now or at some point, All the settings right here on this screen don't affect anything within your timing system. In Oval, that's not true. In Oval, all the settings that you use in My Race Pass actually transfer over to your timing system. That doesn't happen here. So this is just for you to make sure that you've got the things selected in case we eventually get to the capability of having ladders in My Race Pass. That's a goal of mine, is to be able to have ladders presented, and it will notify the fans or the racers what style of ladder it might be. If they're looking at the run length, that is going to be helpful when it comes to presenting data. That one actually does tie to the data. I forgot about that one. Run length will dictate how much of the data shows on the time slips of the live timing. So if you select 1/8 mile and it's a 1/4 mile class, you're not going to get the 1/4 mile time. If you select 1/4 mile and it's an 1/8 mile class, you're going to get extra data. It's not like you're going to have missing data, but you're going to have extra data that you don't need, which can be confusing for fans particularly. So please go through these settings for each of your classes and make sure that they are correct and they are useful. I talked on Monday also why it's important for you to have classes on your events, even if you are not using live timing, because it helps you with fan engagement. They can see what classes are running. They can see if they want to come to that event or not. It also will be helpful when we get into if you're going to use points through us, which I still recommend. It's helpful, obviously, to have those classes in there because you're going to start having entries for your drivers, and we'll have to put those in there, and then those entries will then receive points at the end of the night. So again, it's going to be important for you to add those classes. So if you don't know how, go back and watch Monday's webinar. If you still have questions, just contact support@myracepass.com and we will get you all set with what you need. So here are the settings for a particular class. At the top, you can see that this drag strip is configured to be a 1/4 mile track. If this needs to be changed for your track, most tracks are set up ahead of time to the appropriate length. But let's say one isn't. You just click edit length and you can change the length of that track. As for settings for a particular class, each class will have its own set of settings. So you can see at the top, this is for my top ET class. The next class down is my modified class, and so on. Over here on the left, you can see all of the classes that are available for this night. And you can actually click on the name of those classes and it will scroll you down to that setting, to those settings for that particular class. So if I'm looking at one class, there's a number of settings on here that I'm going to talk about. Obviously, right here is our qualifying ladder. This will be helpful if, again, like I said, we present a ladder, or if at some point when we're able to do a buy run draw. The first round buy run obviously is kind of like a random draw, so that's not as important. But if you're going to roll a buy run or pull a buy run based on lowest reaction time, this will be helpful if you do qualifying based on lowest reaction time. It will organize them based on that every single round. So based on reaction time or index or under the index, like stock and super stock, or to an ET, the lowest ET is the fastest, which is typical for most heads up classes. Down underneath that, we have ladder type. There's a pro ladder and a sportsman ladder. These are the two most common types of ladders in drag racing. But, you know, it's common to have other ones as well. So just pick one, and if it doesn't fit that, it doesn't really matter because, again, it doesn't really do anything at this point. Over on the right, this is where you need to pick your run length. Again, this is important. This is how your data will be presented. So if it's a 1/4 mile class, pick 1/4 mile. If it's an 1/8 mile class, pick 1/8 mile, or 1,000 foot if it's 1,000 foot. Drag racing tree, we've got a couple of those. We have a full 500s full 500s tree, a pro 500s tree, and then a 400s pro tree. So pick the specific tree for the class that you have. Most of them, obviously, if it's a bracket program, are going to be a full tree, but obviously if you've got some .90 stuff or something like that running, you're going to have those pro trees that need to be used. Finally, the last two things down here, I'll talk about the right and then I'll talk about the left. Right is your result style. Again, if you are running a bracket class, again, that's going to be drag bracket race results. Again, that's going to take it into account that you've got dial-ins and you've got over-under and those kind of things. In the other sense, if you've got a drag heads up, that's going to say first person to finish is the winner. And then if it's an index class, it's going to be heads up, and then you can add the index in there if it's 1090, 890, whatever it might be. Over on the left, this is the timing name. This applies for those using live timing. if you are using live timing, because we have automatic results that populate from your timing system into my race pass via live timing and into your results column, there you need to put the name of your classes that you're using into the boxes in my race pass so that the computer can send the data to my race pass and my race pass knows where to put that data when it receives it. So for me, because this is my top ET class, I might put in here the timing name for my, well, not might, I would put the timing name for that class out of my timing system. So in my timing system, if I have it called top ET, I'm going to put in this box top ET. If it was called Super Pro, I would put Super Pro. Exactly how it appears, as it says, it has to be identical exactly to how it appears in your timing system is what needs to be typed in this box. If you don't do that, your results will not automatically import and you will have to go click them and show them where to go. So again, I recommend that you go through each of your classes and add your timing name so that later on, even if you don't have live timing now, later on when not live timing is available, you will already have done this and it will be a default setting and you won't have to worry about it. So again, timing name is important. Lastly is this required registration. Remember me talking about having that bracket registration for points, having a yearly registration for people to sign up for points. This is where it's going to come in handy. So even if you do a registration and you have them still pay in person, you can do an online registration that's free and then have them pay for points in person. Having that online registration is very important for two reasons. One, it allows you to collect all driver data from the beginning, and it's already put into the My Race Pass system, which will be helpful when it comes to you doing points and results and other things. Two, it's really going to be helpful when you have points because I can now select in this required registration box, I can now select that I want that yearly registration required, whether it's a, whether it's a points registration or whatever it might be. I'm going to have that be a requirement for that driver, or sorry, a requirement for that class in order to earn points. So you can say, I want all the people with this registration to get points. And it will pick out the ones that have that yearly registration and ones that don't. So for those non-points racers that come on a weekly basis, let's say you've got them that, you know, we all have them, right? With the influx, you've got some traveling people who come and then they race and then they leave and they aren't in your point system. This is a way to award all of the points people points without giving the non-points people points on our side. So the last thing after you get all of that set for that class is I would click save as defaults, because once I've set these up for one class, once I've set this up for top ET for one day, those same settings will carry over for every time I use top ET in my season. So again, you have to do this the one time at the beginning of your season. And once you've got it set for all of your classes and save them as defaults, then you don't have to change things again. Would I go in and check it? Yes, I would. But you don't have to change them again because they'll already be in there. So that's about setting up your classes. I know it seems like a lot, but it is nice once you get it set up one time and then it's set up for the whole season and you don't have to worry about it. So next up would be those entries. So there's a couple of ways you can get entries in there, and I'm going to talk about all of them. So if I go to the entry screen, again, I'm talking specifically about our non-Portatree tracks right now, the things you can do without having live timing. There's still a vast number of things you can do. What I just talked about with setting up your classes, you can do all that without using live timing. And it will be helpful for you, especially the points registration and that kind of stuff when it comes to calculating points if you do that. Or when you input points, I guess. So here's the entry screen. On the entry screen, you're going to want to enter the people that are racing in your races because that's how you're going to determine who can earn points for the night or can't earn points for the night. So the reason that is important is because, if they're not in the race, so to be in the race, your name has to appear over here on the right-hand side of the screen. If they're not in the race for the night, they will not be able to be on the points list for the night. And if they're not on the points list, then you cannot award them points if they have earned them. Okay. So Here's how you get drivers into your race over here on the right-hand side. There's a couple different ways. The first way is if you've created a driver registration or they have raced with you before and you've entered them into the My Race Pass system, they will be over here in this left tray called My Competitors. Anybody who's ever raced with you at your specific track and has been put into My Race Pass is over here in this left tray or has registered for an event. So they're going to be over here on this left-hand side. You'll see them in that tray. So if, let's say, Austin Lloyd comes up to me at the gate and he says, hey, I'm Austin Lloyd. I've registered online and I paid online even. I registered and paid online. You say, okay, so you look for his name. What class are you in? Top ET. So you go up here, make sure you're in the proper class for the person you're talking to. So top ET. And then you're going to look for their name. There's a couple different ways that you can find his name very fast. Up here in this filter, you can either ask him what his car number is, which would be 23, and it will bring up the people that have that car number. Or you can ask him for his name. He said his name was Austin Lloyd. Either way, whether you type it in or you type in the numbers, it's going to pop up with the driver that is the closest match to what you're typing. So when you find the driver that you need, you're going to click on his name. That's going to bring up what we call the confirmation screen. This screen is just to make sure that you click the proper driver. So you're going to double check their car number. They told you it was 23. It will populate in here for you, so you shouldn't have to type anything in. And then underneath of that is an owner's box. I would just confirm with them that Austin Lloyd Racing is the owner of this vehicle or of this entry, and that they're the ones that want to be paid out. This is super handy when it comes to payout at the end of the night. And you could double check this at the end of the night, but it's so much easier to do it right here, right now. I know it seems like a lot to do at the gate, but it's really not. You'd be like, okay, Austin Lloyd Racing is who you're going to get paid. Who's going to get paid tonight? Yep. Okay, sweet. That's all you have to ask. If there's nobody in here, I wouldn't even ask. Or you could ask, is there an owner on this vehicle if you wanted to? But if there's not an owner already put in here, I wouldn't even bother asking. Okay. Again, that's for them to fill out on their online registration. If they don't fill it out, that is an assumption that the driver is the one getting paid. So again, owner is Austin Lloyd Racing. Yep, cool. Payout to the owner, that's checked. Again, you can uncheck that if you need to, or you can check that. Underneath of that is what we call an alternate payee. That's if like your car is, you've got somebody driving your car, but somebody else owns it, but then somebody else is getting paid for it. A third party is getting paid for the entry at the end of the night. Doesn't usually happen in drag racing, can happen a little bit in oval, which is why it's an option. So if you need that, let me know. That is an upgrade in MRP plan, so it would have to be a discussion to have. Over on the left-hand side, you're going to have all the driver information. If they've got a profile already created, they may have a profile image here. Underneath that, you're going to see some of their entry information. How old are they? Do they have a claimed profile on My Race Pass? It's got a check mark, so yes. You've got an address on file. Obviously, if they did an online registration, you would have an address on file. And then if you has all forms. Now, this might be important for you if they need to have a competitor license, like an IHRA license or a WDRA license or whatever it might be. If they have all those forms in place, then you on the back side, on the registration side, on the back side, you could say that they have all their forms, and then this would also be a check mark. Not important if it's not applicable to you. Underneath that, you're going to see confirmed memberships. This would be, like I said, that yearly registration that you would do for points. That would be considered a confirmed membership or an event registration for this particular event. Both of that information will show up under here. If it's a yearly registration, it will show up as the name for that yearly registration, and then it will have a checkbox over here on the right-hand side. If it's an event registration, it will say the event name that they have registered for, the class, all that stuff. And then over on the right-hand side, it will either say NA, meaning they have not registered for that class, or it will have confirmed or something of that nature over here on the right-hand side. So again, those are just confirmed registrations that you can look at and you can see for sure whether they have or haven't registered for that event. And I might show you one of those in a minute. I just have to pull it up from a different account. So that would be kind of what it looks like here. And so then once you've confirmed all these things, again, this is going to be fast because really you're looking at car number, owner, do they have the right registration? Those are the three things that you need to double check. If those things are good to go, then you're going to push add. And then you're going to wait for the next car to come up to you and you're going to say, okay, it's going to be like, my name's Stevie Nicks. So you're like, okay, Stevie. Nope, I don't have them in my list. Okay, you didn't register online? Cool. So here's the other way to find them. You can look up here in the search bar. You can click search and you're going to start typing their name in. And then when you start typing your name in, you might see a bunch of them, like look how many Stevies there are in our system. And then you're going to have to keep going and say, okay, Stevie, and then I want Nick's. There doesn't seem to be one. Okay. If it's K, and that's Kenwell, but it's an N. So if a name doesn't come up because they've never been in My Race Pass before, you're going to create new. And in this box, you're going to do a couple of things. First name, last name, hometown, state. And you're going to check this box and you're going to create it. That's going to create their profile in My Race Pass. It's also going to add them to the race for this evening. Okay. It's very simple as that. You can take their money at the gate. You can do all the other things, but creating their profile is super important and super easy. They will get an email notification saying that they need to go in and confirm it and claim their profile. So they won't that way. That was only with registrations. I apologize. This will just create their profile. Then you'll tell them to go to My Race Pass and claim their profile. So again, if they're not in your left tray, you're going to search for them here with their name. If they don't show up, like here, this is my son, Bo Wessler. Boom, he showed up. So I could click on his name. It's going to bring up his information. I'm going to double check his car number. Should there be an owner? It says the owner is going to get paid, but there's no owner name in here. I will ask him what the name of the owner is. Ask the people in the vehicle, not my son specifically. They'll tell me. Obviously, if it's not in here, I could look for it. I could search. In this is going to be previous owners, which I could steal from him, Wessler Motorsports. Yep, that's who it is. Cool. So now I've got that in there. Wessler Motorsports is in there for him. And then I'm going to look for any other information I need. No active registrations, so I won't have to worry about that. And then I'm going to push add. Okay. A last way you can look up somebody is if it's a driver and he does have a My Race Pass profile. He may have a My Race Pass hard card, which would be like an actual like credit card size hard card, and it's got a barcode on the back of it. With that, you're just going to click scan barcode. And then there's where you would use your scanner, like your Bluetooth scanner to scan that. They may also have it in their app. They have the My Race Pass app. There's a spot for you to have your MRP cards in your app, so you can bring it up there as well. It looks like a barcode on the screen as well. So that's the third way. More than likely, you're not going to have any hard cards or MRP app cards. You could end up eventually having MRP app cards, but it's not likely. So that's the ways you're going to add people to your entry list. Again, you can either click on them from your entry list. Let's say, okay, let's say it's easy. Let's say Bert Beetle comes up and you're like, okay, Bert, you're sweet. You're right at the top. So you're going to click Bert. You're going to verify his name, his number. Yeah, and it doesn't look like he's got an owner, so I'm not even going to worry about that. And then I'm going to confirm any registrations he has down here. See, and I'm going to add him. That's all you got to do. Click add, click add. It just depends on if they have an owner or not. So again, if you can't find anybody, you're going to search for them. This is my husband. If I can spell his name right. He does have a My Race Pass profile. Again, I would click on him. It looks like he's never raced in this class before, so I would have to add him because, yes, it was correct that I want to add him to my list. Okay. So that's how you add drivers to your entry list. Again, this is important if you want to do points and pay at the end of the night. That's going to be your easiest method. Could you do this from tech cards? Absolutely. If you did not do an online registration and you're not going to ask people at the gate about entering the race there, you could definitely do this from paper tech cards. Have all your tech director or whomever collect all your tech cards, bring them up to the tower just like you would normally. And then you could go through the list and you could add them through the search bar, more than likely, unless they're showing up over here already. You would add them through the search bar. Just start typing their name. If their name shows up, you can click on them. If it doesn't show up, you want to add them, and then put them into the race. You can definitely do that from a paper tech card as well. I've done that several times. It's a little time consuming, I know, because you have to kind of do it in My Race Pass, and then you have to do it in your timing system also. But it's worth it in the end, because once you've done it the very first time, they're always going to show up in your left tray. So you never have to enter them again. You just have to click on their name, add them to your race. Be like, yep, I got his driver name. Yep, sweet. So that's kind of nice how you get your entries in. The first time, again, it can be a little cumbersome, a little time consuming. That's why doing an online points registration is nice, because it gets that information in there for you. And you don't have to wait on your tech cards and take all the time to do it there. So once you've got all your drivers in your class, you run your race for the night. This is a non-Portatree track. You run your race for the night. You get all your data at the end of the night. You got either your points printout or you got your round-by-round results, whatever it is. You're going to go into My Race Pass. You can go in and still do points and pay. I know that a couple of our clients do this, and I think it looks really nice on the website. I'll show you what it looks like on the website. Now, some of this is oval track stuff, so I'm going to scroll past the oval track stuff. Pardon me. But this right here is a top ET class. This is what it would look like. Obviously, all of these drivers have some kind of logo as their picture. If they don't have one, it's going to show up with just the letter of their last name, like Susie Baloney down here. So if that's the case, they can go in their free My Race Pass profiles and add pictures of them or their car or whatever it might be, as long as it's appropriate. And that can be their profile image. So if you want to know more about, now I'm an all access member, so obviously I can see all the things, but this is what it would look like for your top ET, your super pro. Obviously you don't have top ET and super pro, but junior dragsters. See, this is what it looks like if somebody has a profile picture. You can see it there. All your classes would show up in a row like this. And at the top, you could sort them based on class, based on competitor. Obviously right here, you can see competitor or owner. And sometimes it has a list of the classes over on the right-hand side where you can choose what class you want to look at, and it will scroll you down to that class on the list. So if you do click on somebody's name, like let's say I clicked on Burt Beetle, it's going to take me to Burt Beetle's profile. And here's where I can learn more about Burt Beetle and where he earned his points from. So he raced in the first race that he raced in was the one on 312. And then he earned 28 points total. He got nothing for test and tune, obviously. 10 for first round, 10 for second round, 5 for third round, and then show up points, which was 3 points. So that was his total of 28. So you can have that information if you've got the right plan in My Race Pass. Pardon me. So again, that's why I recommend doing points through My Race Pass. I know it might be a smidge more work than you're probably doing now, but it looks a lot cleaner and it's a lot nicer coming to the end where you can look at, what everybody's done throughout the season and kind of get a feel for what you got going on. So back over to our entries. If at the end of the night I'm done running my race, I want to do points and pay. If you've never set up a points and pay from the beginning, I will show you how to do that. Obviously, if you're not a Portatree track, you can't necessarily use test and tune races or results right now. I'm hoping either that we get connected to live timing or we find another method for you to upload results to make it a little bit easier. But I would plan on, or I would imagine that we'll be able to connect to live timing before we'll get another method for results. So after entries, you'll go down to results, down to points and pay. If you have another points and pay scheme in there from a different day of racing, it will show up here. Most of you will not. So in order to add a points and pay scheme, you're going to click on this add points/pay group. Now, this is going to be the place where you're going to enter the name of the points and pay group you want to use for the year. So I would call this like 2024 points or racing points or whatever you want to call it. And underneath point scheme, you will not have anything in here. It will be manual entry, which is what you should leave it on because you are manually going to enter the points into your My Race Pass system. So manual entry for the points, manual entry for the pay. I'll show you why we do that and how we do that. And then over here, this should be your schedule for the year, and you want to apply it to the competitors, not to the owners or teams. And then points eligibility, I would just use this as manual and manual. So if Bert Beetle's not going to earn points, he's not going to be checked. That just means he shouldn't be eligible to receive points, which means he should not turn up on your points list at all. But we're going to make sure that everybody does earn points this day. So once you've got manual, and the name of your group, your points group, you're going to add that. And then this is where you're going to enter the points for the evening. So unfortunately, because we can't enter round results very easily, we're going to not have a whole heck of a lot to do in here other than add it at the very bottom. And I'll show you what that looks like. You'll see in here there is an elimination 1. That's because I used this event for a demonstration the other day. And so that's actually from one of the Portatree things. So we're going to ignore that where it says elimination 1 for now. And we're just going to go from event totals. You'll see event totals up here at the top. Obviously, there's 0 for everybody because nobody's gotten any points yet. So right here, after you update the points at the bottom, these numbers will change to whatever numbers it is that you put below. So if the pay owner, for sure we want to pay, we can't pay. See, the pay owner is there for Austin and Bo because they both had owners that needed to get paid over the drivers. Like I said, we're going to cross over this elimination 1. That's from a different event or a different time anyways. Down here at the bottom is your show up points. This is the next thing that you will see on your screen. Everything, all the points you have to give will only show up as show up points right now because we can't put round by round results in. Therefore, we can't do round by round points, unfortunately. But at least you can put points in there in general. So let's say at the end of the night, I have points to put in for everybody. And I'm going to put them in right here in this adjustment column. You cannot put them in the points column. The yellow are for points. The green is for pay. So in this column, I'm going to put the points that each driver earned for the night. She didn't do so well. She got 3 points. He also got 3 points. Austin, he's going to earn 13 points because he won first round. And Bo, he was a big winner. He's going to get 45 points and 43 points because he won. And then Bert, he's getting 13 because he lost first round. And then lastly is Mike. Mike's going to get 38 points because he was a runner-up. So once you get the points in there, obviously I'm making those numbers up. So if you have a points list to go by or something like that, it's going to be a lot easier to type it in super quick. And then you can go over to your pay column. Again, the adjusted amount for the pay. This pay column doesn't get seen by anybody public. So it's not like you're going to be able to see like, oh, shoot, Amanda's got paid $500 or whatever. You won't necessarily see that. So I'm not going to get anything because I didn't win. Semifinals, they're going to get $25. The winner got $100. Again, I'm just making this up. He also gets $25. And then he's going to get $50. So I've got my points and pay in there. I can push save. Once you've entered your points and you push save, it'll take about 20 minutes for your website and or the app to update with the night's points. So once you've got them in here, you can see at the top, my event totals have updated as well. So now that I've got my event totals updated, that's going to update on my website and on the MRP app in about 20 minutes. It takes about 20 minutes for it to cache and update on there. So that's kind of how you get to your point stuff, or that's how you do point stuff, and that's how you do pay stuff. Once you've gotten your points and pay in for the night, you can then go into making payments or creating payments if you'd like to. If you are going to print checks through My Race Pass, you can do that. I'll show you how to do that. Or you can keep going into our creating payments window to show what type of payment you give. Maybe you're not giving checks, but you're going to give cash, but you also want to keep track of it for your accounting purposes. You can do all of that on our payment screen, and then you can actually push it to your QuickBooks. So I'll show you how to do all of that as well. So again, once you've got your points and pay, you're going to push create payments down here at the bottom. It will open a new window. It's going to open our payments tab, which is actually located in our season management. And here I'm going to look and make sure that all of my information is correct. Do I have the correct date? Is it the right class? Is the description correct? Okay. And then I want to double check that I've got all the information I need. Obviously, Wessler Motorsports is coming up because it's a team, quote unquote. Wessler Motorsports is coming up because that's who's getting paid, even though Bo Wessler was the driver. Same for Austin Lloyd. Austin Lloyd Racing is getting paid, even though Austin Lloyd was the driver. And you can see the ones that we have addresses on file for and which ones we don't. So if we were going to have to mail these checks, we would have to be sure and collect Mike and Leonard's addresses so that we could mail them to them. So on the screen, again, we can change the type. The default payout right now is check. I would assume you can change that right here to be a different one if you wanted it. If you always give out cash, you could change your default to cash rather than check, but we defaulted to check. If you want to change it, you can also click here to the drop down and give out cash. Let's say one weekend you decide to give out cash instead of giving out checks, whatever it might be. You can do that there. And then you can see the amounts that are going to get paid to them. This is how much is owed, and this is how I'm going to pay. It would be weird to have different amounts, but I guess it's possible. And then once you double check that the information is correct on here, if you're going to use My Race Pass to print checks, you're going to go down here in the bottom where it says create checks. You're going to click on that. It's going to open this window. And here's where you're going to choose. What is your check layout? Hopefully you know what your check layout is. You could do a laser top check. I'm not sure what I-80s checks look like or so on, but if you need a different check format, I'm sure that's something that we can help you with. And then in this next box, you can put your check starting number. So let's say your first check that you're going to print on is 2015. So that's going to be the check number that the first check is going to have. And then every check after that is going to be one number above that. I understand that they're valid. And then for print order, this is just an order in which these checks are going to get printed out. If you do it by competitor last name, that means that obviously like Burt Beetle would be first because his last name starts with a B. Wessler would probably be last because it starts with a W, that kind of thing. Running order, that just means how they're running on this paper right here. So Wessler would be first and then so on and so forth. Again, that's running order based on how they finished. And then you could also do car number. So I'm going to do running order just because typically I would probably do by competitor last name for my own personal preference, but it's up to you how you do that. And then you push create, it will open up another window, PDF window, where you can see the check layouts. So there's 4 checks, a total of 4 pages. So here's for Wessler Motorsports for $100. And then the next page would be for Mike with $50 and so on and so forth. So that's what the checks look like. Then you would print that and print that up here in the top right. It would print onto your checks and then you would have them available to hand out to your racers. The last thing I do want to talk about is the report. If I go back to my payment window or my payment screen, there's a report that you can print out that's really handy for you to have in the tower or wherever it is you do payout, where the drivers can sign or whomever it is that's collecting the check can sign that and verify that they have picked up the check for the evening or picked up the cash or picked up the payment, whatever you want to call it. If you go down here to print and then you click on report, pardon me, you can see that you've got this payout report. Now, payout report is based on printed checks or payees, depending on, which form you want, but they mean the same thing. Payees obviously has everybody because these two didn't actually get anything, the last two. So you probably don't need the payees one, but maybe you just need this printed check one. I would print this out, this printed check one. I would print it, and then when people come to pick up their checks, you can have them sign between their name and the amount they're receiving just to verify that they have picked up their checks. So at the end of the night, like, oh, I see Austin, I don't have a signature from Austin Lloyd Racing. They must not have collected their checks yet. If at some point you need to mail a check, you can also have the capability, I forgot to show you the back this on the create checks part. Actually, I forgot to show you back on the payment screen. You can actually print, oh, no, I'm sorry. It's right here under print. You can print mailing labels. So if you have their addresses on file, you can print mailing labels for those people and you could actually mail their checks if you needed to. So after you've got that all done, you've chosen what type of payment you're giving them, checks, cash, whatever it might be. Underneath of it, you can see what printed checks. You can void those checks out if you need to void them. But once you're done with all this information, you can actually export this to your QuickBooks, and it would be in your QuickBooks for your accounting purposes and all the things that you need to keep track of. So that's how you kind of do points and pay. There are some other reports up here. You can do current points and pay, that kind of stuff. I don't play around in the reports too much yet, just because I haven't had the time to, but that's kind of what points and pay look like, and that's how you can use them to your benefit. The last thing I'm going to talk about is that 1099 reporting. Actually, I'll talk about that after the fact. I'll talk about that when I get done talking about Portatree stuff. So that's it for what I would consider to be your non-Portatree tracks for race management. Again, it's going to be that registration process. I think that's going to be easy and important and super useful for you, because registrations lead to entries, and then a registration leads to My Race Pass accounts, which lead to entries. So again, registrations, once you've got those registrations, you can look at your entry list. And then in that entry list, you can add people to the races so that they can earn points for the evening. And then you're going to go down to your points and pay scheme and be able to give them points for that evening. It is important for you to know if you need to change classes. Let's say you need to go from top ET to modified or so on. You have to go up here to the top in the middle where it says top ET, and you're going to click the drop down and you're going to go to the next class. Each class does have its own points and pay scheme, but when I click on add to points and pay, I will have to add the exact same thing that I did before. Manual entry, 2024 points, and so on. Obviously, this one doesn't have any competitors in it because I didn't have it created yet, but you can add your points of pay scheme before you have any racers in there, and it won't affect anything in the end. Notice this one does not have that elimination 1 in there. That's because there are no races in here. So again, you'll have to do a points and pay scheme for each class. Maybe they're different, maybe they're not. Obviously, with manual entry, they're not different, but if you're going to do some automated stuff, it might be a little bit different. So again, that's kind of the completion of our non-Portatree stuff, non-live timing stuff, I guess you could say. At this point, it's Portatree, but non-live timing stuff. That's the way you can use My Race Pass to your benefit. I do think there's some benefit to it in the fact that it shows up really nicely. You can get a lot more information about it. You can have drivers sign up for My Race Pass accounts where you can learn more about the drivers. Again, if I click on their name, it brings up their profile specifically. You can see where they finished, where they earned their points. They got startup points and then they didn't get anything else, where you can see what they did for the night. So as for a Portatree track, let's say you are a Portatree track. I'm going to show you how you should go about an evening as well. So the nice part is it's very similar to what I just described for the non-live timing tracks, but you do need to connect to live timing so that you can get those automatic results to populate where they need to go. So just like I said, you're going to start in that setup screen. Within this setup screen, you're going to do the same thing I showed before. You're going to pick the right type of ladder style and run length. Again, run length is super important because that's how the data is going to be presented in the app and on your website. What type of tree you have and so on. And then again, here's the most important part of your setup is that timing name. You're going to put the timing name in this box exactly as it appears in your timing system. So if your timing class is called bananas, you need to put in bananas into that box. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it matches identical to your timing system. Again, that's going to be required to get those automatic imports. If you don't have it in there, they will not automatically import, and you will have to hand click every result and put it where it needs to go, which is very time consuming. So once you've got your settings for each of your classes, I do recommend that you go in and do your entries next. I do not recommend probably to connect to live timing yet, because probably this is all done before the race And live timing should be connected just before the race because you don't want to lose connection during the race. So down to the entries, again, entries is the same as I explained before. If you need to add a driver from this left side column, again, hopefully from a registration or because they've raced with you before, you're going to find your name there, their name there. You click on their name, you add them to the list. Okay. If they don't appear over here, they've never raced with you before, they've never raced with my race pass, whatever, you're going to come up here to the search bar. You're going to start typing their name in. If their name pops up, you click on them and add them just like you do the others. If not, you're going to add one. You're going to create new, where you put in their first name, last name, city, and state. And that's going to create their profile enough for them to race for the evening. Okay. Once you've got all your drivers over here on the right-hand side, again, you can do this from registrations. You can do this from your paper tech cards, whatever it might be. I really think that online registrations is the way to go because you don't have to worry about paper tech cards. Now, is there a tech portion to our registration? Not yet, but that is something that's going to be hopefully coming in the near future. Like maybe a tech portal where the tech directors can kind of choose what has passed or failed, or if they pass or fail in general. Might be just the check mark. Yes, they passed. No, they didn't. It's really, really that simple. And then once you've got your entries in there, the next thing you're going to have to do is connect your live timing. Now, obviously, you're going to do this after your timing system has been turned on and connected, and you know that it's working properly. And this is how you're going to connect to the live timing. You're going to go to this My Race Pass Live tab, MRP Live, click on that. In this tab, you'll find many different things. This top right box is what we're going to use in our live client. I'll talk about in a minute. This is the code that we need that's going to make our live client on the computer talk through the internet. And that's how the data gets transferred to where it needs to go. And send lineups will not be useful for you. That has to do with oval stuff. We don't even need that. Underneath that, we have download MRP Live. If you don't have MRP Live client on your device, you will have to do that. So if you are new to setting up a Portatree timing system, or sorry, setting up an MRP Live on a Portatree timing system, first thing you have to do is get yourself a laptop separate from your timing system computers. You cannot have your timing system computers and MRP Live on the same thing because My Race Pass has to be connected to the internet, and we do not want your Portatree timing system connected directly to the internet. So get yourself a laptop or an external computer. I recommend a laptop. It's super easy. You can get a really inexpensive one. It doesn't really take a lot to run My Race Pass because a lot of it is done on the web. So you don't need a whole lot of RAM or anything to run this stuff, or storage, I should say. So once you got your laptop, you're going to take an Ethernet cable and connect it from your computer, from your laptop to your timing system, to the connections where your timing system hooks up. It's usually it's a little bank of Ethernet cables where you're connecting all your computers together, because typically you have 2 or 3 different computers running in your timing system, and that's kind of where they all kind of hub. It's like a Ethernet hub. That's where they all connect together. So you're going to run an Ethernet cable from there to your laptop, and that's going to allow Portatree to talk to My Race Pass. Once you have that connected, you're going to download the application, download MRP Live. So you're going to download the application. It's going to download onto your computer, and then you're going to install it. Once it's installed, you're going to open it up, and it's going to look like this. This is the My Race Pass Live client. This is what is going to communicate to your timing system and to the internet to make it to make the data flow. So there's a few things you have to have on here to make sure that it's correct. Obviously, you have to have Portatree's IP/port. All these other ones do not work, so make sure it's not only on Portatree IP/port. And then you're going to need the IP address. This is the IP address for the laptop that is running this live client. You're going to find that by going to your command prompt on your computer. So in the search on the laptop. So on the search, you're going to type in command prompt, and it's going to come up. You're going to click on it. I apologize, it opened on my other window. It looks like this. In this command prompt, you need to put in ipconfig/all. That's going to bring up all the IP data for this computer. It looks like a lot of information, but really there's only one that you need. You need this one that says IPv4. Typically, there's only one of them on your device. So that's the one you're going to be looking for. There are others. There's like this IPv6, but most of the time you're looking for the IPv4. It's going to be on your computer. So you're going to find this IP address and you're going to type this IP address or copy and paste it directly into the live client right here. And in this port button, in this port spot, you're going to put in 50,000 if it's not already there. It's always going to be 50,000. Once you have those two pieces of information put into the live client, you're going to go over to your Portatree announcer screen. And you're going to open up, and I'm going to show you on we have a really nice help article that explains this as well. You're going to open up your Portatree announcer program. It's going to look like this in the beginning. Down here in the bottom left, there's a spot that says enable NHRA live timing. You're going to check that box because we're doing live timing. And then you want to put in that exact same IP address and port number, these two right here, the exact same IP address and port number. You're going to put those here in these boxes. Again, change the IP address to whatever your computer is, your laptop is, and put 50,000 in for the port. The last thing you want to do is to uncheck or deselect this send in real time. Send in real time means it sends it incrementally. Like you pass your reaction time, like you leave the tree, your reaction time comes up. You pass 60, it comes up. Past 330, it comes up. We don't want that. So unselect that so that it doesn't all come up incrementally. It's going to come all up at the end like normal. Once you've put in that IP address and the port number and unselected or deselected that option, you want to push save. It should connect to the live client fairly quickly. So make sure that if it doesn't, that you double check your IP address and you double check that your port and your IPs match each other. Okay. The last thing you have to do in the live client before you can really connect it to the internet is to copy this MyRacePass live connection code. You're going to highlight it and you're going to copy it. And you're going to put that into your live client right here where it says MRP live code. You're going to put that same code right there in that box. Once you have that done, you're going to push connect and it should turn green. If it doesn't turn green, that means that something is wrong. Either your IP address is wrong and it will pop up with an error saying that there's something wrong. So if there's something wrong, it will tell you that there's something wrong. So once it's connected, MRP Live is connected, Portatree is connected, and your announcer screen should have also saved fairly quickly, and it should also be updated. Then you know that you're connected. Another way is you can refresh this page right here. And over here on the right-hand side, this should now change a little bit. It's going to have this MRP logo, and it's going to say waiting for next race to begin. So now it's just waiting for cars to stage and go down the racetrack, because then that's when it's going to start collecting the data that it needs to collect. So after that happens, the rest of it happens automatically. Now I'm going to do a little bit of simulation of what it's going to do. We have a really nice, what we call a replayer. It simulates a race. So I'm going to send a couple of pair, quote unquote, down the track. And I'll show you what it looks like in live timing. I just need to write down some car numbers so that I have those in my possession. So when I change screens, I know what I've got going on. Obviously, this works a lot faster when it's live timing when it's live, because your computer operator is typing them in and then they're going to doing their burnouts, going to the starting line, making a pass, and then it pops up. But because I have to simulate it, it's a little bit slower. So remember that name that I put in earlier for this class is Top ET. So I have to make sure that's the class I'm in and make sure I have it in the right spot. So I'm going to now run them down the track, and We should see them pop up here in just a second. There it is. So there's our first race. We've got number 101 against 20, and it's Luke left. Again, it's Ronald right. This is just because those are the names that I have in my fake simulator race. If I changed it to the names in the timing system, it would work out just fine. That's what live timing looks like. If I did another pair, let's say I did another pair. I sent the cars down the track. Give me 1 second here. Boom, the next pair comes up. Again, the names are the same because in our simulator, I'm not changing the names of the drivers. But obviously, if 23 in your timing system was Austin Lloyd and 23B was who it is, those names would be what would populate here on the live timing screen. Now, since I've ran a couple up here, I'm going to show you what it looks like to see the results. Excuse me. Pardon me. So if you look at the results, you don't have to look at race. You don't have to look at test and tune. I recommend if you're going to run a test and tune class to actually add a test and tune class. Don't use the test and tune tab. Test and tune tab is kind of like a place where all of the unorganized runs go. So if you didn't put a timing name in, or it was just running a regular test and tune class that you didn't have in MRP, those runs would all collect in that test and tune tab and waiting for you to do something with them. So I would recommend you just use a test and tune class. We do have one set up in my race pass. It's just called drag test and tune. I would recommend using that for any test and tunes you do, like Wednesdays and Fridays and those kind of things, just because it's going to be easier that way. So hopefully you put in whatever test and tune class on your computer you're going to use, put that name into your setup, and it will work just fine. If you do test and tune through your classes, like let's say at Super Pro, whatever, they have their own test and tune classes, those will show up in the regular results. And I'll show you that in a minute as well. So after you've got some live timing going through and you want to check to make sure that your results are coming through, click on the results tab and you should see that you've got some pairs in here. So at the top, this is where you're going to find out what class you're in, what round you're in, and all that good jazz. So here was the one pair. Amanda raced Leonard. And then there's another pair, pair 2. You just do that drop down and brings you to the next pair. Oh, look, it's Amanda and Leonard again. We must have to re-race. And then you've got pair 3, which is one of them that I sent, Burt Beetle versus Leonard. And then there's pair 4, which was Austin Lloyd versus Mike Markers. So here's where you're going to find your pairs and you're going to find your drivers. So also going to be eliminations right here. If there was another elimination, like let me do one run for elimination 2. So let's say we were done with round 1 and we went into round 2 and they made a pass. Your first pair went down the track. So now if I refresh this page, you'll see that there's a drop down here now because now I started round 2. So here's elimination round 2. And you can see that Austin now had to run Amanda and Austin won. Again, there's exclamation points here on this screen because this is all data that does not need to be collected because it's an 8th mile class. So if you hover over it, you can see it says class is not configured to use this time. That's because this is an 8th mile class. So 1,000 foot, 1320, those aren't applicable. It'll show up on the screen. It won't show up on your live timing. It won't show up on your results in the app or on your website, but it does all show up here all the time. So that's what it looks like if you want to change classes. Again, you're up here. If you click on top ET, you go to another class. You should see results if there were any. If you don't, it'll look like this. I would not add races if you got live timing going on because it will automatically put them where they need to be if you set it up correctly. So that's how you do, that's what it looks like when you use live timing. Let me show you. This is like an overall, if we're looking at races, once some live timing has happened, this is kind of what it looks like. The cool part about being able to add rounds is you can do round sponsors. So let's say first round was sponsored by Lane Automotive and second round was sponsored by Fuel Factory and third round was sponsored by somebody else. you would be able to put your sponsor names in here. Those names would show up in the app. So then your sponsors are getting notification or not notification, like they're getting their name out there as the eliminations happen. So that's kind of what it looks like on the backside. If you have a website through us and you want to see what it kind of looks like on the front side, let's see if I can find some results. I go to results and nope, that's not the one I want. That's for oval track. I apologize. I'm trying to find my results that I had. You can tell we do a lot of trainings and things. Oh, that one's live now. I guess we can't go that far. That's what it looks like. Like this says live now. That means I'm connected. I'm live. If I click that, I'll be able to see the results and everything that's going on. Like here's the information. If it's open, all that good jazz. I have 6 entries in top ET. I've got 1 entry in junior. And then I can go to the live information if I wanted to. I don't know that I can because I don't know that I'm logged in properly. But so that's what it kind of looks like. If you want to see results, I was trying to find one that had results for a drag class. Well, this one's just has entries. Shoot. Apologize, I can't find one. Oh, here we go. This is the one I was looking for. These are the results that I was looking for. If I scroll down to the actual drag classes, this is what it looks like to see results on the website. It'll show you elimination round 1. It was Nikki versus Harry. Nikki was the winner, and it'll give you the reaction time, the ET, and the mile per hour. It doesn't tell you anything more than that on this screen because I didn't pay to log in to see all of the results. I only got to see the snippet of results. If you want to see all of the results, like all the incrementals and all the details, there is a fee for that in the app and or on the website. It's $7.99 a year to see everything, all the information about all of the runs. So again, here's elimination round 1. Here are the pairs within round 1. And you can see here's elimination round 2 and the pairs from that round 3. And then underneath of that are going to be your test and tune rounds, your test and tunes for that class. So I talked about how you can run test and tunes for specific classes within those classes, right? Like you go into your timing system and you type in, click your top ET and then say it's a test and tune or a time run. That's what's going to show up here. We call them test and tunes. We probably should change that to time runs. And then that's where it's there. And then here's another class, modified, elimination round 1, and so on. So that's kind of what the results look like on the front side. And so that's what it looks like for the live timing portion. With the points and pay, it's a little bit different because we can automatically populate some of those points for you. So if you go into the points and pay for, let's say, a Portatree timing system, I'm going to delete this points and pay scheme so I can show you how to add one that's not, or add one that will be calculated automatically. Now this will not work if you don't have live typing capabilities because it obviously uses your round results to calculate your points. So if you're going to add a points and pay scheme, that's not really going to work because you may not already have one set up. So to set up a brand new points and pay scheme, you're going to go over here to settings in the top right, and you're going to click points/pay schemes. Now I have a whole bunch of them in here because we obviously create a lot for a lot of different scenarios. Plus we have a lot of them in here that Oval Track uses, like NASCAR and WSOTA and Power I, and there's a lot of different point schemes that are already in here. So I'm going to create one over here by clicking on add scheme. And in there, I'm going to create a championship scheme. That would be like a point scheme. And I'm going to call it 2024 season points. And obviously you need to read this. It says drag racing scheme. It's asking if it's a drag racing scheme because they're very, very different. So if it is drag racing, you need to check this box. And then you're going to push add. Most of how this is set up is very, very handy as long as you give the same amount of points to your buyback cars as you give to your first round winners. Currently, there's no way to award buyback cars a different amount of points than the winners, the first round winners. So that's kind of a flaw that we're working on and trying to figure out the best way possible to do that, because our system needs to know that they're a buyback in order to award them the right kind of points. And obviously the timing system knows that, but we don't know that. So maybe getting that information from the timing system potentially, or there is a spot within my race pass to actually designate it buyback. I'll show you that real quick. If I look at results, I can say that someone was a buyback right here. So maybe going in and checking that will award them different points. The problem is if you forget to check it or whatever else, they're not going to get the right amount of points. So we're trying to find the best way to solve that. But right now, if you award the same points for buyback winners as you do first round winners, this scheme will work for you. So in this scheme, there's a couple different things. Show up points. Obviously, if you award points for everybody staging their car for first round, like, oh, you made it to the starting line, you get 3 points or whatever it is. So start points are going to be show up points. Your competitors run any qualifying or elimination rounds, they're going to receive these startup points. So at my home track, we get 3 points for showing up at the starting line. Non-startup points, this would be like if you give points for people coming to your event at all. Let's say they paid to get in the gate, they're going to get something. You could do that as well here. Like even if they didn't end up racing first round, they would still get 3 points or whatever it is. You could give those non-starting points. That's up to you. Final round, this is a little bit deceiving. This competitor loses in the final round, receive the above points. This is not in addition to their round points. This would be like total points that they would receive at the end of the night. So unfortunately, because right now we don't have the same amount of rounds every time, we can't necessarily use this final round winner and runner-up like we want to, because at my home track, like runner-up gets 5 extra points and winner gets 10 extra points. But I can't put 5 and 10 in there because that's all the points they would receive. But I also don't know how many points they're going to receive, maybe because I don't know how many rounds of racing I'm going to have. So that part is still being worked out as well. But what I would recommend, if you do award your runner-up and your winner additional points, I would just add those to your sorry, we're still making it. Add those to your adjustment like we did the manual points way. I would just add those into your adjustment, like give the winner 5 extra points and the winner 10 extra points and the runner up 5 extra points. So I would kind of ignore this final round for right now until it's better. Underneath of that, eliminations rounds. This is where you're going to be able to add how many points you get each round. So I would recommend you putting in more rounds of points than you're going to ever use, because then I don't ever have to come back in this scheme again. So let's say I'm going to put in like 15 rounds. There's no way I'm going to have a race that's ever 15 rounds, but that will eliminate me having to come back into the scheme and add more rounds to my racing. So this is the number of rounds that we're going to add. I want my points to start at 0. And I'm going to have them increase by 10. I get every time you win a round, you get 10 more points. Every time you win a round, you get 10 more points. And then I'm going to push this plus sign. This is going to give me all of the breakdown up to 15. Okay. This is why I cannot use this winner and runner up, because if I've got 7 rounds, that means my winner is going to get 70 points. But if I have 8 rounds, my winner's going to get 90 points. But I have to put the total points in these 2 boxes up here, and I don't know what that's going to be. So once you have your startup points or your show up points up here, you've got your round points in here. You can push save unless you're qualifying rounds, which typically the bracket racing. Ladder, like let's say you have a series where you ladder everybody every time and you want to be able to give qualifying points. You can do that very similarly to what we did right up here, except for these ones decrease. Notice this says decrease by, because this is saying first place is going to get 100 points, and then, you know, like if you qualify second, you get 90 points and then 80 points or whatever. So that's the way to do that. So once you have those things in there, you're going to push save. Now the scheme is done. So when I go back to my points scheme, or sorry, my points page, I can add points and pay. Again, I'm going to put in like 2024 points. And instead of doing drag demo, I'm going to call it 2024 season points because that's what I named my point scheme when I created it. 2024 season points. So that's the point scheme I'm going to choose from. Pay scheme, you can do a very similar pay scheme as you did point scheme. So on this pay points and pay scheme page, hang on a second, this page right here, I can add a scheme. Instead of doing a championship, I can add a payout scheme, name it, and it's going to look very, very, very similar to the points one, except for the dollar signs. Or it's going to have dollar signs instead of points. But again, you can do that same breakdown. The difference is that a lot of times bracket racing anyways, we don't give round money. And that's kind of how it's written, is like round money based. So back over to our points and pay. I'm going to use that. I'm going to, in pay scheme, I'm just going to do a manual entry because I can just as easily type in the points. I'm going to manually eliminate people from points and pay. Nobody's eliminated, so I'm going to add it. And now, based on where they finished or how many rounds they've run, you can see that they already have collected points. They've all gotten show up points except for Bo, because Bo didn't race. So everybody has gotten show up points. And then when they've raced second round and third round and so on, they'll be able to get more points that way. You can see elimination round one. You can see that nobody's earned any points because it wasn't finished. And then round two, nobody's earned any points yet. And then to the end. These points will not be accumulated until the race is complete. So you won't be able to see your total points until the end of the night. But you can see it's automatically giving points because I've told it what points I wanted to award people. So other than that, I would do payments the same way I showed before. And then that would be your night. Again, just like before, once you've looked over your points and you verify that you agree that your points are showing up like they're supposed to, you would save and it would update on your website and it would update in the app within about 20 minutes. So I know that's a lot of information, but the last thing I do want to talk about is our 1099 report. So if you go back to, I'm going to create payments just so I can get to this screen. Go back to the payments tab here on our season management payments. At the bottom, you'll see something for a 1099 report. If you click on that, this just helps you figure out who you have to send 1099s to. Again, you can change this from $600 and up to all payees. It just depends on who you're sending 1099s to or what you want to see. You can also see what type you're sending it to. Are you sending it to the owner or the competitor based on, you know, who was the one who got paid during that event? You can also sort these earnings by highest to lowest or lowest to highest. So you can really get a lot of information from this. You can also see underneath of that. You can also see underneath of that. Each individual team has their own. So here's another team. They've got all of these sprint car wins, and this is their total down here at the bottom. It's broken down by date. So you can use this information to do a lot of your accounting stuff when it comes to tax time. You can export this information into an Excel file, and then to those drivers and or owners, you can add those social security numbers that you have kept somewhere else. You can add those to that spreadsheet, and then you can take that and use what Austin says is probably the best or the easiest 1099 report builder that he's used, which is called W2 Mate. And you can send it into W2 Mate and it will produce your 1099s that you need to send out to your competitors and owners. He said for the ones that he did, it took a very short period of time, like 9 minutes to do all the ones that he had. Obviously, you may have a lot more than that, but it shouldn't take too much time to do that. There is a great help article at support.myracepass.com if you're looking for more 1099 information. So look there first, or if you want to contact support at myracepass.com, you can do that too. Either way, you'll get that information that you need. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me, Amanda Wessler. My contact information is probably in one of the emails that I've sent you before. So please reach out if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to help you. I'd be happy to set up separate trainings if you'd like. I just want people to use this and get the most out of it that they can. So I hope that helps, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.